listening to blackandbluevoices.com on the Two Guys Talking Podcast Network.
Welcome back to another episode of Black and Blue Voices. I'm your man in the middle, Brandon Bridges. To my left, as always, I have the hottest chief in the game since Chief Keef dropped Love Sosa. Chief Giuseppe.
I got to compliment Brandon on his creative nicknames. He comes up with one, it's just every episode he comes up with something new. So that's
I like that one.
That's fantastic. I don't know if I like that one, but
we'll pretend like I didn't spend a lot of time on that.
Anyway, welcome. Thank you. Appreciate being here.
It is hot.
Thank you. To my right, the birthday boy, the man, the myth, the legend, the Black John Wick, Mr. Eric Alexander.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. As always, our Scott Storch behind the keyboard, Mr. Mike Wilkerson. And canceled again. And today we've got a wonderful guest, Mr. Anthony Myers, former police officer and now a minister. Is that correct?
Yes, that is it.
Awesome. Well, hey, we're going to jump right into the juicy stuff. We know that's why you guys listen in. But as always, feel free to jump on the socials, send us messages, feedback, like, subscribe, or whatever the YouTubers say nowadays. This is Black and Blue Voices, and we are here to get out of our echo chambers. So
absolutely,
I want to jump right into it. Chief, I'm going to tee this one up for you, and it's going to come at you a little fast.
Sure.
A lot of things in the news lately.
Right.
I think one of the more concerning things that I've seen is around our juvenile crime rates, right? And what are we doing not only to prevent those crimes, but for reform, rehabilitation, and how is that disproportionate by communities?
It's not a new problem. I mean, we've had problems with juvenile reform, and when you go back into the history of the juvenile justice system, really the juvenile justice system, if you go back many years before I was in policing and such, it was pretty much created to take care of things that are called status offenses. These are offenses, things like truancy, a runaway, juvenile crimes. But as that went on, we see that juveniles are committing a lot of adult crimes, and the system really just isn't prepared to handle juveniles committing those adult crimes. So there's tons of rules. Anthony was a police officer too. He can tell you, there's tons of rules. It's really hard navigating, handling a juvenile, detaining a juvenile. There are, you can't treat a juvenile like an adult. There are certain rules and such, and rules for good reason too. Young people are impressionable and things like that, and we want to help our young people. I mean, who in the room? This is confession time, right? Who in the room didn't make a mistake when they were? I'm not gonna ask you. I'm not gonna ask you. But let's face it. I mean, we were all young. We made mistakes. But yeah, like recently, I'll give you an example from our area. Recently, we had a juvenile suspect in our region that actually robbed an Uber driver. Was caught. There was a chase. He was subsequently caught. I know that there was a crash involved. One of the police officers got hurt, but they took that juvenile into custody, and less than 48 hours later, he robbed another Uber driver at gunpoint and actually, I believe, discharged a weapon at him. And it gets to the point where it's like, well, what are we doing? We're the way that happens too is that juvenile's taken to a juvenile justice center, and then they make a decision whether they're going to hold them or not. And obviously not. They've released them back to their parents. That person's back out, or that suspect's back out, and they commit the same crime with less than 48 hours. That's not helping those victims. That's not helping that suspect either. Okay. So, that's the dilemma, and there's a lot more to it. It's not just here in our region. It's across the nation. I mean, I've heard from people out of state, chiefs out of state saying, hey, we've got this problem too.
And I would add, before you move on, the other thing that is not helping is the justice system, is policing, right? Is in community faith in how these things are handled. And that's a little wobbly, right?
I mean, the system is fractured, right? It's fractured. I'm not from the region, I'm from Dallas. But even there, it is fractured because laws are always behind society. Mm-hmm. And they never really catch up. And You know, back in the day, if I had a kid, I can call a parent, and the parent back then would parent.
Right.
That was part of it.
Right.
Their community would parent. The crimes they were committing were close to home. They weren't traveling to do crimes. They was real close to home. Somebody knew them. And I had more options. There was midnight basketball. There was a police athletic league. There was a lot of stuff.
Yes.
And at least you felt like I got some tools in my tool belt.
Right.
I'm not sure those are still there.
Yeah.
And so now you're dealing with what then do you do?
So I think that brings up, honestly, perfect segue into what I was thinking. You know, you have a lot of people out there who will say, well, this starts at home, right? And I think to a degree we can all agree with that, right? You have great homes and that unfortunately kids come out not the best.
Right.
And then you have terrible homes where kids come out great, right? But I think if you look at it, or if we take stock of the opinions around us, a lot of people would say it starts at home, right? So at what point, just an open question, should we be looking at more community programs for deterrence, for rehabilitation, for prevention, as opposed to a point system or, you know, heavy police involvement?
Well, I think that, you know, good question. Yes, we should look at community programs and such. The juvenile justice system does offer lots and lots and lots of resources. But if I had to nail down the problem that we're seeing right now, it's that we're just not detaining and holding juveniles. It's like I've said to some of my colleagues, and you got to remember there's a separate system. So you have a prosecutor in a county that prosecutes adult crimes. The whole juvenile system is separate. You know, you have a juvenile officer, a juvenile administration, and this is the way it works in our area. And they take that through the court system. They're the ones that decide they're going to hold somebody, not hold somebody, or whatnot. And that differs. To be fair, it differs from county to county. It depends on the interpretation of that juvenile officer, that juvenile administrator. But really, the problem's coming down to is they're not holding. We're going to get kids resources. We want to help the kids. We're just never going to hold a kid, never going to detain them. Well, when you take a 15-year-old, a 16-year-old, and you allow them to steal a car and steal a car and steal a car, and I can tell you guys, I've got police departments that will pick up a kid and take him back home because they know that juvenile center, wherever they're at, won't hold them. So they just drive him back home. That kid goes right back out, like we've just seen, commits another crime. That's hurting that person. If you do that for 2-3 years, I can tell you that crime escalates. You know, maybe it's not just stealing a car. Now I've got a gun. Now I'm pointing a gun at somebody. Now I'm robbing somebody. By the time they get to be 18, they get into the adult system. They're going to be in prison or they're going to be dead from a shooting.
But we don't even have that runway anymore, right? This dude carjacked somebody.
Right.
We're not talking about truancy here, right? So,
right.
So I agree with you. Over 2-3 years, you're missing the opportunity to
you've got to
reform
stop
an impressionable young person.
Yeah.
And when they're 18, they get into. If he would have killed somebody in the second attempt, that's all the run. That ain't a 2-year runway.
They start at 10, not at 1.
That's right. They're coming into this game
right at a much higher. Yeah.
Right. So like, and as the great philosopher Obi-Wan Kenobi once said,
this fantastic
only a Sith
philosopher
deals in absolutes.
Yes.
Long live the Empire.
Fantastic,
right?
fantastic philosopher.
So like the always never is where we get stuck on this.
Yeah.
And children get prosecuted for adult crimes. There's precedent for this. So like I don't understand what the barrier is to looking at each of these individually and saying this is an adult crime that was committed here. This is not a take them home to your parents situation. That just seems like common sense to me. And I wonder what the barrier is to that.
Well, I want to ask Mr. Meyer here, you know, being part of the ministry, right? Having that ear to the ground and a different perspective that I think than most people here in this room would have, a different access, different conversations. Do you believe this is something systemic within parenting, within our community? Do you think it's a mix of outside factors? Is there disproportion that you see? I mean, I'd really love to get that feedback on what you're seeing on the ground.
Yes. All the above.
All right. That's the end of the episode.
Yeah. Good talking to you. No, this is not a zero-sum game.
Yes.
It's all inclusive. And so I look at kids, what are their options?
Okay.
What do they have in front of them? And those are the choices they make. And if I don't see options and I feel a certain way, I make those poor choices. And I'll give you an example. And so this is after Michael Brown was killed in that neighborhood right there. There's an elementary school, Coke Elementary School. We built a playground there. And when I'm talking to kids there who are in 5th grade, They said every time they see ambulance, fire truck, or police, something's wrong in my neighborhood. They've never heard those sounds as being positive. You ask, why do you walk in the street? Because our sidewalks are torn up.
Yeah.
So my choices are limited. If I live in Lake St. Louis.
Yeah.
If I live a certain place, that is not my reality. That is not my perspective. So we judge.
Yes.
You shouldn't be. And like, I don't grow up that way. So I think first we recognize that if I have minimal options, I'm going to make minimal decisions. And those decisions get to be harsh. What we have now is this 24-hour news cycle. Everything is in social media, and it's all the time, which creates fear and frustration and everything else. Because back in the day, you even never heard about this kid, carjacking.
Yeah.
Now it's live.
A bottomless well of fear.
Right.
It is. You never reach the bottom of it.
And so I think is it parenting? Yes. Is it educational system? Yes. Is it community involvement? Yes. Is it community policing? Yes. It's all of that.
Yep.
And there still will be problems.
Yes.
The reality is there still will be problems, but how do we mitigate some of these problems? And so I think if you don't give kids better options, doesn't mean they're gonna make the right decision, but then I can hold you accountable because I gave you the options.
Right.
I gave you a runway to get out of this.
Yeah.
I grew up on the streets in Brooklyn. So I saw ways out. I had people around me that pushed me out. And so if you take advantage of that, that's one thing. If you don't, I have friends that didn't. And you like, I feel sorry for you, dude, but that's the plan you played. They're better. And even at that point, there are still better options.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, and I think a lot of it boils down to the idea of disinvestment in community, disinvestment in people, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what we're dancing around. I think that's the root issue. And one of the things that aggravates me, and I know other Black folks, is this the easy, obvious answer on a situation on a micro basis is to say, well, it's the parents. And that might be true, but there's a macro issue to this, right? Decades and centuries of disinvestment in particular communities. And the thing that's aggravating about that is it puts it on the individual who are a product of all of that disinvestment. Generational over time. Right. Like this has been going on since the 1930s, right? At least, right? And then it absolves society of its responsibility for these outcomes as well. Because there is a macro element of this, which is, I think for a lot of people, especially people in other communities who aren't as well read or versed or steeped in it, it's not their reality, like the word you use. That's a big thing to try to swallow.
Yeah, it is.
Right. It's a big thing to think about.
Yeah, the system's part of that too, Eric. I think that, it's like, I can give you examples, like when a juvenile, and it differs from different juvenile centers, different administrations, but juvenile center, I've got examples where they have held a kid. Kid has stolen a car. They have held him. It's got a long history or whatnot. And until you break that cycle and prevent him from going back out, him or her from going back out and doing that again. But there has been success stories where they've been in custody. That's not pleasant or whatnot, but they've been in custody and they have worked with them. They have gotten their GED. They have improved, So where are they at? Because if you don't have that at home, or you don't have that through a church, there's got to be somebody that steps up and says, you can't do that. We've got to stop you from doing that. And then we've got to mentor and teach you and try to get you those resources. You can't just go right to, hey, we're going to get you a bunch of resources. We're going to call you in a month. Well, if you haven't stopped that impressionable kid from continuing the behavior, you're hurting them.
So I want to pose to all parties here, just listening to this conversation, I want to challenge everybody, right? So Chief, I'll start with you just because that's where we left off. I think there are people who feel within various communities across the board that our policing is already too heavy-handed, right? And that when that youth makes that mistake, they're essentially put down a path that they cannot escape from, right? They go to juvie for 6 months, right? They miss school, so then they get their GED. It's hard to get into MIT with a GED, right? We all know this, or Harvard, or shake the stigma that I think sometimes is associated with that. There's talks about that juvenile record being sealed. Is it not sealed based off the crime? And there's a lot of factors that I think people within the Black community would say that the policing tactic of not just immediately providing community resources actually hurts that youth's potential. What would you?
Well, and let's talk about reality and perception. Let me tell you what I've been seeing.
Yes.
So when we go out to the community, all communities, it's just like when we talked before about there's a perception, or there's I guess a fallacy out there that the Black community doesn't want the police. The Black community doesn't need the police. We talked about that on previous episodes. When we go out to community in general, the region in general, and go, we want to lower crime, everybody goes, yes, we want crime lowered. Hey, we have a problem with juvenile crime. Everybody goes, yes. The feedback that I hear from community and people that may say, well, we don't want the police to be too heavy-handed, are saying things like, hey, as long as this is applied equally with equity, and that's what we're supposed to do.
Mhm.
The law needs to be applied equally with equity in that. Then yes, let's hold people. I mean, we look at the action, right? Somebody has stolen a car.
Mhm.
We're going to hold that person, right? Somebody has a long history of doing this again and again. That tells me the system's not working. And that's the ask from the community that I'm hearing. You guys can tell me different, but that's what I'm hearing, is just apply this equally.
That's always the issue, right? The laws
Right.
aren't the issue as often as the unequal application
Right.
of the law. And
Right.
like we're talking about MRAPs and armored command centers and things like that, mobile commands in our last episode. And people are like, oh, why does my police department need an armored vehicle? It's because they see that as something that's going to be used against them, not something that's going to be used on their behalf. So
Right.
that perception and the community that they're just going to be rolling. I mean, we saw that in Ferguson, right? Soldiers walking down the street firing tear gas into people's yard. You know what I mean? That's what people are afraid of.
I think part of it is because there's a distance between them and us, that dividing line, that chasm in between, and it's devoid of trust.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so
we started off talking about, right? Was the trust.
So when I was a cop, I had to be in community. I know
Right.
the shopkeep owner. I know the guys at the pool. I know who they are. I might still have to arrest you.
Right.
But when I roll up, they know I'm going to do my job well. I don't think we have that as much anymore.
And they know you're acting in good faith because they know you
At least
a little
I'm
bit.
trying to.
They know you a little bit.
Right. But now it's not. And so now we get to say them and us.
Mhm.
And I don't like them because I don't trust them. All of them? It can't be all of them.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a
Right.
zero-sum game. And we've allowed it to become a zero-sum game, which creates scorched earth. And when you have that, nothing grows in
That's right.
scorched earth, or it takes a whole lot of time.
Right.
Man, we need to do another episode on zero-sum thinking and the epidemic of
Yeah.
zero. Everything we're seeing in
so-
America right now is a product
right.
of zero-sum thinking.
So that's what it is. And so now the grace between people is gone. If you agree with me, we're
Right.
good. If not, you are my enemy. There is no in between.
Yes.
And so now we made communities enemies, rather than I can look at you and say, you know what? I'm going to give you a chance until you prove me wrong.
Right.
And we don't do that anymore. And so given that, I don't care what vehicle they ride. On a tricycle, I don't trust a tricycle. It doesn't matter what that officer rolls up there on. I don't trust the image of you. And sometimes they don't trust the image of the community. And so then what do we do with that? I think we have to go back to some of the basics. And when I was in school, you had your grades and you had the other things like, am I a good neighbor? Am I,
Right.
Character? And we got to go back to that, holding each other accountable in our own communities of being better.
Right.
So let me challenge this side of the table. There are people who believe that the image of the community would be better served by immediately locking up 14, 15, that juvenile, when they do a crime such as carjacking or something that is outside of truancy or trespassing, something low hanging. What would your thoughts on that be? Because there are people who do feel, hey, as soon as it happens, let's interdict. Let's get him to juvie for 6 months, and that should scare him straight. What is your thoughts on that?
I'll be brief, but and then pass it over. But we have to think. There's no one size fits all solution, right?
Mhm.
So this is not a binary. This is a false binary that people are creating. Nothing in policing is a binary. Yes, no. It's like use of force, right? You got to make that decision in the flow of that moment and make that decision. So I think I would say it has to be based on what the offense is. Right. A dude goes out here and pulls a gun on somebody and carjacks them. You got to get that person off the street. That's my opinion. For two reasons. Three reasons. That person's safety. Because next time, if he does pull the trigger and kill somebody, now his life is on a drastically different track. I mean, we're already on a bad track anyway. Right. Now it just got 10 times worse.
Right.
Second, for the community, not just the safety of the community, but the faith of the community in law enforcement. And three, because if that remains on the street, everybody else, you got to reduce the amount of crime in the streets, those types of crimes in the streets, because then other people get pulled into it, right? So I mean, we have to think about these things in a holistic way and not just try to make a binary yes no decision out of it. That's my take.
Before you answer real quick, just something you said, so I want to maybe splice this question a little bit more. We talk about the perception of disproportionate policing by community, right? But there's also an element of community involvement, community policing. So you've got two cases. Both kids stole a car, right? Kid A, kid B. Kid A, the cops only know him as a bad kid. He's getting in trouble all the time. Hey, this is what we should do. We should lock him up for a little bit. Kid B, relatively good kid. Community knows him. Active in sports. All of these things. So they decide, hey, you know what? He made a mistake. This is a one-off. We're going to let him go home. How do we equate all of these factors and things, right? Because as you said, it's not a one size fits all. So I think these things can give the perception of disproportionate policing based off of that community involvement. Those things that aren't necessarily tangible that you could write down. Yeah. Your thoughts on that?
Part of it is just nuance. Some of you there are not enough social workers, high school counselors, people to step in, and we rely on that gap to be filled by the police. Okay, I think that's the wrong place to put it. Okay.
I think we all agree.
And so if you give me a hammer, that's all I have. I'm going to use a hammer. You've empowered me to use this hammer. Now you bring me things other than nails.
Yep.
Don't put me in that situation. Maybe a part of the problem, a part of the solution, bring me nails. And so some kids are nails, some are not. And so when you apply the hammer to something that's not a nail, society says, wait, that's wrong. Well, then help fix this. So look, education is a huge piece of this. They spend as much time in school during the year than they do anywhere else. What they've taken out of school are options for kids. When I was in school, you had shop class. You could be a plumber. You can be a carpenter. You can do HVAC. That's drug dealer money. Because you can make a lot of money being a plumber, okay? So if I got an option and there ain't nobody shooting at me, I'm gonna fix your pipes.
Yes.
That's gone. So you will find kids in the streets who are incredibly smart, that have good grades, that still make poor decisions because I have no options. Or they feel like they have no options because they haven't seen anything. Exposure is everything. And so they haven't seen it, they don't know it. And so somehow we've got to get better society. Say, young man, young lady, here's some more options for you. And they get the discipline. If you're athletic, there's a coach, there's a structure. When you don't give kids structure, okay, I worked for a city in Texas for a while, and budget season, they decided, you know what, we're going to cut because there were lights outside the basketball goals at night that kids were breaking. So we're going to take down the goals. It was like, the police said, don't do that. Please don't do that. So they did it. And then crime went up. And I'm like, what did you expect? That was an outlet.
Right.
Why don't you, I don't know, put the lights and put a cage around them and have officers out there with the kids in community? They're still doing that. And so sometimes we think that if I take an option away from you, you'll get better. So even if that juvenile is carjacking and they did what they did, then what? Because you lock him up for 10 years, now he gets out at 22 because he did it at 12. Is he a better human being or worse? So what am I unleashing on society? We got to do a better job. What's the plan? And I think we've gotten rid of the plan. Once again, scorched earth, let's just punish. No, there's no rehabilitation in this.
Yeah, and the juvenile system, though, the way that it works, though, too, is when they do have they do offer them a lot of resources. That's the rehabilitation, the counseling, it's a matter of trying to stop them from continuing to commit. You got to get them out of the cycle,
Right.
Yeah.
in order to get them help. And and that's really where I think that we run into problems. It's so overwhelming now. And I tell you guys, we have adults that get juveniles. They recruit juveniles to go out and commit the crime, because they know that they're not going to be held accountable. Whereas if they're an adult, they're going to go to jail or they're going to get stopped. I mean, and let's face it, what's reality too? You commit a crime, you don't go automatically to jail. I mean, it's your first offense. There's a system, there's checks and balances in the system. There's mitigating factors, things like that. With juvenile, it's just so much higher. I can tell you that I have stories from police departments and police chiefs where a kid has committed a crime over and over and over and over again. And then finally they get stopped, or they got to wear an ankle bracelet or whatnot. And then they cut the ankle bracelet off. They go out, they commit the same crime. And then eventually, I mean, I know of one where, eventually then they're in an incident where they try to run over a police officer. They get shot. They're in critical condition in the hospital. It's not helped the community. All those victims, that's not helped them. And I got to stand up for them too. Right. I mean, if you're the person that's getting carjacked or had a gun pointed at you or getting shot at, it's not helping you. It's not helping that kid. So, it just depends on how it's applied. Now, with this point system thing that they have, I can tell you some juvenile administration offices are like, hey, you're in a stolen car, we're going to hold you. Others are like, no, I interpret it like, you can only look at one charge, we're not holding you, it doesn't fit the criteria or whatnot. And those are the areas that we're having the problems in. It's not conducive just to our region either. I had a call from somebody out of state just last week, police chief out of state, and said, hey, we're really having problems with this too. What are you guys doing about it? So we're looking at to reform it.
Why is it so unclear?
Well, I think the elephant in the room, and Chief, I really want your perspective on this, because you live this day in and day out, is everything we've talked about is centered around resources, right? And if you've only got X amount of resources, how do you properly allocate them to serve two needs, right? At the end of the day, your job is to serve and protect the community in large. While on the same token, as we've all touched on, helping those juveniles, right? Providing those resources, those outlets, that pathway for them. So how do you I guess, what struggles do you find in balancing those resources, and what are some things that you try to do or have seen work, not work?
Well, I mean, if you ask me about resources within the juvenile justice system, do they lack resources? Yeah, they lack some resources, but it's not the resources that everybody wants to hear. A juvenile justice center, if they're going to hold somebody securely, a detention, and it's not the same as like a jail or a prison or whatnot. I mean, there are similarities, but they don't have, whereas the county jail, for example, might have 400 beds. A juvenile justice center has 30, right? So they don't have capacity. So I mean, they some of the reason, well, why aren't you holding the kid that carjacked, or why aren't you holding? A lot of it's interpretation, a lot of it, and we're going to get into that too, because I want to dive into some of the, I think, fallacies that are out there. But other is, resources for, do we have a facility to do that? Do we have, do they have the resources to get kids help after they stop them from committing the crime? I have seen good programs that they've tried to help these kids, but I mean, everybody needs more resources. So yes, we need to enhance that. As far as the police go, I think that if we cut down on juvenile crime, that's half the battle. I mean, we're trying to lower crime in the region. We've done it through deterrent. You have to have a deterrent for crime. It just doesn't work.
There's certain offenses that you just can't turn over to the parents.
No.
Right.
You just can't.
But it even starts at a property crime. I can tell you. So stealing a car is a felony offense, right? Stealing a car is a felony offense. It's a property crime. If crime escalates, they talk about gateway drugs. I think there's gateway crimes. crime escalates. If you're used to continuing to commit crime and nobody holds you accountable, nobody stops you and says, hey, this isn't right. I mean, think about it. If nobody taught me when I was younger and I got in trouble for things, I'd keep doing it. I wouldn't know. So we need to start back, at these lower level crime, these felony crime. You have committed a felony crime. Hey, this is serious.
Yeah, this
you
ain't
got to
stealing
stop.
the Snickers from
Yeah,
the
right.
You've
got to stop doing this. We got to get you to stop doing this. So, and I think, I don't know, just my opinion, that's saving a kid.
Absolutely,
that's saving a kid.
So I'd love to get your perspective, having had both foots on both sides of the fence, so to speak, right? What, I guess, from your time in law enforcement to now your time in the ministry, what are the things that you see are missing from one side or the other, or that could be better provided by one side of the fence or the other?
One of the biggest things, and we haven't brought race into this.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of black officers out here upholding the law.
Yeah.
And we act as if they don't exist in the conversation sometimes. And we always make it a black and white issue.
Yeah.
And it's not. Once again, it's not. And so I think there are a lot of black officers that see the same sets of crimes. And so we got to stop. Are there race issues in our country? Yes. Is everything racial? No. And there's a nuance to how we approach it. Let me put it that way, how we approach it. Because it can't always be the hammer that we use.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I think when you talk to black officers, have the same problem, but you don't see their faces in the conversation most of the time. So we allow.
That's a great point.
We allow the vision to perpetuate our racism to make it a zero-sum game, them and us. And somehow we got to stop doing that, because I think we'd have better conversations.
All right. I like that.
Okay. Because if you're in the black community, if I don't like the policing that happens right there, and I see black officers, I don't like the policing. We can fix that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
If I don't see any black officers now, I don't like the policing, and I don't like y'all either. I don't trust you because of history of untrust in our. So I think we got to change. We got to be smarter at this and how we represent, who represents who, the voices we have out there speaking, because we perpetuate a narrative that we can fix some of, or at least have better conversations. I think conversations do everything. I've been fortunate to travel around the world in places that are more broken than us. A couple of years ago, I was in Rwanda and massive genocide and things there. And there are people there who watch their families kill each other who are still neighbors. This is not an assumption. They grow up in this, okay? That was 25 years ago. These kids were 10, now they're 35, so they know what they know. And they made it a point, let's try to work this out, okay?
Right.
And I thought when I left there, I'm like, if they can work this out, we can work this out.
Absolutely.
Because here's what one of the guys told me. He said, you Americans, you're very funny. You have the luxury of disagreement. We tried that once. It did not work well for us.
Felt that.
And that rested with me. And so we've got to step out farther and like, okay, yes, there's a problem. And this thing that has happened is not good. Let's have a conversation. Let's not yell and scream.
Right.
And we may not agree. Okay, but at least let's show up at the table.
Yeah.
Let's have a conversation, because we're not gonna fix this overnight. It's not. It didn't get here overnight.
Right.
And so there are some bad crimes that everybody in our community said, that's bad.
Right.
And I know the kid that stole the 2 cars, I know about that. I'm like, yeah, that's bad. I don't care who you ask.
Yeah.
His own family knows it's bad. And I don't know his family. So there's a reality of this. If somebody else was saying it was bad, they'd be like, yeah, that's bad. You went to the local barbershop in North City, they'd be like, yeah, y'all need to lock him up.
Yeah.
Right. That's what
because they live in this neighborhood.
That's what I'm getting. That's what I'm getting too. That's what we're
this out here.
That's what we're hearing from
so the
community.
assumption is like, we're not saying, hey, do nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
Get this kid out of here.
Yeah.
What then do you do with him? So what does justice look like? What does redemption look like? Can this person be redeemed to society at a certain level, or do we write them off forever?
Well, we don't have a criminal redemption.
And that's
we don't have a criminal redemption system.
Well, and that's the difficult. Look, it's hard to forgive. It's hard to. I mean, look, guys, I can tell you that I've had instances where I've had a child sexual predator. I mean, tons and tons of counts. I remember putting him in the car, and he was scared. Put him in the back of the car. You know what? I'm a faith-based guy. You know, I'll go and pray. It's hard to pray for that guy.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's easy. Forgiveness is hard sometimes, but you know, it doesn't mean that there aren't consequences, you know, to your actions. So,
and that's why you're chief, because his head might have hit the roof on the way in.
Well, but let me throw this out to the group too, Brandon. As you brought it up with race, one of the things that we talk about, or one of the things that I perceive as a fallacy, but I want to ask you guys, is there is some narrative and discussion that, well, we don't want to ever hold a kid because a lot of times the kids that we are dealing with are of a minority race, are black, and it's just locking up black kids, and that's racist, and that's why we're not holding kids. I have heard that, not directly, but I've heard that as a platform as to why we're not, you know, taking that action. And like I've said before, everything needs to be applied equally. You know, if we get, I don't care what race a kid is, you're stealing a car, we need to hold you. We need to stop you. It's and then we need to get you help. But is that real? I mean, are you guys hearing that? Is this a basis for, you know, because to me, it's almost like the fallacy of the black community doesn't want policing, right? Right. We talked about the defund the police movement was it set us back.
Yeah. Disastrous marketing of a blanket we threw over a set of ideas, a lot of which had merit, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm the hammer. Don't send me anything but nails, right? Like that's
right.
That's all under the Black Lives Matter thing. But I think a lot of it is the same people, and I think this dovetails on something you said about the conversations. And I think one of the problems is I think I said this on the last pod, but we allow the extremists on both ends to control a disproportionate amount of the conversation.
Well,
we do too. We I know
about this
we do
at
too.
Length the last 2 or 3 episodes, right? But that has to stop, and that as a product of social media, right?
Right, you're right.
People who just and algorithms. I won't say quiet as it's kept because people talk about it, but I still think it's understated. Because once you click on something hateful, then it keeps feeding it to you. But the same people who are saying we don't want police are saying don't lock up black kids, whether or not that's the answer. And everyone sitting in this room can acknowledge that on one side of it, that hasn't been applied equally. And there are, as you said at the top, there are reasons for these rules. On the other side of it, people got to live in this neighborhood, and it's not doing the neighborhood any favors. It ain't doing that child any favor or their parents. It's not instilling any faith in law enforcement in that community, right? And as I said a while back, when you're arresting somebody, you have to look at that person as part of the community that you're sworn to protect. Right.
Yes,
and you have to look at the arresting officer as part of the community that you live in. You know what I mean? And this us instead of us and them, that zero sum thinking and that divided mindset is, I think, a part of the problem.
One of the other pieces is transparency. As an adult, you'd be more transparent than a juvenile. I can tell you an adult everything they did in media. Here it is. You lock him up.
Yeah.
Juvenile, you can't do that.
Right. That is a problem.
And so they think, that's poor little Jimmy. He was in my Sunday school class. Jimmy's changed.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. We can't talk about Jimmy's change. We can't talk about all things that Jimmy's done. That's why he's in this situation right now. And so it's not even transparency. They're not allowed. The system's not allowed to talk about it. Yeah. Which increases the chasm. So I think there's so many pieces of this. There's not one thing.
Absolutely.
If there was, let's flip the switch. But it's not. Right. And so if we know that distrust exists, and then I can't be transparent because of law, you feel like I'm hiding something. So it increases distrust.
So I'm going to ask a question that I know someone out there is thinking. How do we give you an analogy I give to my kids all the time? If I walk by you and I hit you every time, and then I walk by you, you flinch, I don't hit you. And I'm like, well, why did you flinch? Well, because you've walked by and hit me.
The dog holler, right?
Yeah, 100 times, right? how do we, this isn't an easy question to answer, and I don't think we're going to solve this here, but start the conversation of how do we get over the historical precedents that has been set, and that is, people have experienced. My grandfather was born in the 40s. He's got stories that we talked about this, I think, on one podcast, that we've all grown up hearing. I'm sure you've heard stories from other officers, chiefs, family members, right? It is, people are conditioned to believe in what they've experienced. Right. So whether that's good, bad, right, wrong, if it's a zero sum kind of account of it or not, we can say historically within the Black community, there has been a feeling of disproportionate policing, of, not to get super deep into it, but you go back to the lynchings, right, of the 30s, the 20s, the 10s, while officers stood there, right? Emmett Till, and I mean, we could go on.
Not just stood there, deputized members of the community to act in that way.
And we can say today, okay, that's not the world we live in today.
Right.
I would think that I think it's fair to say we have progressed much further than that. However, we still grow up with those influences, with those stories, with those experiences.
Right.
All of us, every single person, even Mike Wilkerson back there, has his own set of experiences, stories, and things he grew up with that have helped form whether it's conscious or unconscious biases, right? What is a solution to that, and how do we get to a solution through that?
You create a podcast called Black and Blue Voices, and you start talking about
What a
it,
commercial for this.
and then
There
you
we go.
And then you try to get people in.
It's a good question.
I think you did that on purpose.
One of the things I think people miss out on, everyone's got this arch.
Mhm.
Pick your whoever it is, kid, level of schooling, someone at your workplace, at church, everywhere. Somebody that is that person.
Yeah.
And what almost never happens, never a conversation.
It's communication. Yeah, you're right.
There's sort of smacking together. No one's entirely sure what happened. We're gonna stay in our little silo,
Right?
And my arch enemy, and I don't know what's wrong. Conversation.
Yeah.
Hitting it on the head with a program like this is perfect.
Yeah,
You just described America.
Yeah, we gotta get though, and that's the key. We got to get James Jones on. I'm calling him out here from our Stand United group. James, you need to get on this show. I got to bring James in, and Justin. I can tell you, James, and he'll tell you right off the bat. I hated cops. I hated it. And until we sat down and talked, we started to get to know each other. He started to get to know other police officers, all that. It's hard to sit across the table from somebody, have a conversation, get to know them, and still hate them.
You can't hate
it's
from
hard.
up close is what they say.
It's hard.
Well, that's an African proverb. From a distance, I thought it was a monster. You got closer, I thought it was evil. Got to me, it's my brother.
Ooh,
So distance demonizes.
Yeah.
yes.
And so if you're not careful, I've created an enemy from my own fear. So you talk about that fear and community fear.
You're right.
Of the other, whoever your other is.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter who your other is.
Yeah, I love that you used the word other. Also talked about it in episode.
Yeah.
Where rather than them being a person, whatever beliefs they have, whatever reason,
Right.
that you, by the way, spoken.
Yeah.
Just
Right.
shove them in the category of whatever that's going to be.
Yeah.
And all of that, there has to be someone that's willing to step forward. I think it's really, I think what that exemplifies most is Chris's propensity to step into whatcopswatch.com moons ago. Because there's nobody else doing that.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, there's a risk.
And I think
there's a risk too.
And you're hitting it on the head. And I loved everything you said about and the conversation about hating up close. And I was thinking Daryl Davis, the dude who got 300 Klansmen to turn over their robes.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and he's like,
Yeah, link him
everybody
up.
in this room wants to murder me on some level, right? But he kept going into that breach. But there is a dynamic difference here with law enforcement because it is a public trust and it is an institution and it does have all of this history. I think the community of law enforcement bears a little more responsibility than two people, right? Like if you and I having a beef, we need our responsibility. We need to sit down and talk it out, right?
Is it not about fundamentals though? That's one.
It is. It is
one of the things that also somewhere.
It is, but the one thing that's different here is there's been a century of gaslighting Black people about what's going on, right? But like there's been a lot of decades where I mean even up to 2014 and even into the 2020s, like Black people's lived experience is not real, and American society at large, I hate using broad terms like that, but the response to Black America was, it's fine, Black people just hate cops, Black people don't want police in their neighborhoods, right? Like, and that's not true to any large extent. So I am.
But
he's furrowing his brow a little bit because he's heard this shit before. But wait, hold on, before you get there. The point is, let me say the thing that's gonna make you mad.
It won't make you mad.
No, it won't make you mad. But I think the uncomfortable truth is, law enforcement has to own that.
Well, if you can actually draw a circle around, and when you say law enforcement too, we've talked about this before. You know, I'm not a cop from 1932, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know. I'm a cop that's policed a certain community and has had certain experiences, and my experiences define my opinion. Now, my opinion might not be right, but it defines everything, you know, my biases, all that kind of stuff. So when you go, if you have bad experiences with law enforcement, go, police are terrible. I'm gonna go, no. Police are the most compassionate, empathetic people that I've known. I can give you examples.
But that's the wrong response.
And that's it is the wrong
to
response.
Somebody's lived experience.
It's just the wrong response. And until we sat and talked and I heard history and I heard that, and I wasn't educated on that, that's still what I see and know until somebody sits down and talks to me about it. And it's all because I don't run in the circles that are going to talk to me about it. That's why we have this show. That's why we're here.
But when I say law enforcement, what I mean is leadership. I mean politicians who are pro law enforcement. I mean, what I mean is, I don't mean individual police officers need to have these conversations necessarily with people in the community, but it has this idea that people and this goes both ways. Let me be very clear. This goes both ways. People use their lived experience to trump other people's lived experience. And it's not like we can't quantify the issues with the justice system over the last 100 years.
Let me ask you a question.
We can quantify it.
Well, real quick,
Let me throw
Chief,
it back. Go ahead.
I would love to get your perspective, just because again, you've worn both hats.
So it's almost like you asked a question, he answered the question, and you said that's not it. I think where we fail each other is, I may give you the best response I can given my perspective. We don't understand each other's perspective.
That's right.
And I'm being empathetic because I'm trying to answer it. But I don't understand it. So if you look at it, until George Floyd, people would say, I don't know what y'all talking about. There's video. And it's like, and everybody was like, whoa. Now in the Black community, you're saying this is like Tuesday.
Right.
It is what it is. And so the greater society said, oh my goodness. But I think people forgot and have fallen back into a norm as if that's a one-off. And it's not necessarily a one-off. And so because of that, I think we've gone back to distance again, and we're not having good conversations, and we don't have each other's perspective. Part of it is we're not willing to go to the other side. And I think that's the hardest piece of this. And that goes both ways. The community is not willing to go outside of its realm, to be really uncomfortable and have those conversations and not let them get heated. I think policing doesn't do a lot of community policing anymore. Get out the car, walk the street, and walk the street and don't look menacing, smile. And so it's funny. I was in Manhattan not too long ago, and Manhattan downtown has a lot of police. Times Square, they're everywhere, and they're in full tactical gear, and they don't seem menacing. It's normal. When I travel overseas, you see that everywhere.
Yep.
And it doesn't seem menacing. And so I wonder, how do we, it takes time to change. So when you look at something, okay, even though we've come a long way in society, especially in Black culture, it hadn't been that long. Our country is 250 years old. Slavery preceded that. Jim Crow, redlining, everything else. So I'll be 62 next week. I know Black really don't crack. And
Say it loud for the people in the back.
Looks 20. Look at him.
But so I was born in this country without full rights. So the Voting Rights Act didn't happen until after I was born. So you've got in this country 60 years of Black achievement. It's not a long time. And so the pressure, there's a lot of pressure to that. We have to understand that because we want it right now.
Yeah.
And so some things we've gotten, and we need to applaud those. We still have work to do inside and outside our own communities. And so I think we have to look at, I can point a finger at them. Let's work on some stuff over here. Yeah. You know, let's work on some ways that we can better communicate. So even now, so a few years ago, I was dealing with some officers. I deal with police a lot. And I saw some officers in St. Louis City, and they were on the street corner. I said, "Hey, how you doing?" And they just looked at me and wouldn't even speak. It's like, that's messed up. I'm not a threat.
Yeah.
You know, and if I was a threat, you give me a reason to be a threat.
Right.
I said, okay, I'm gonna change the narrative. So I went back, started ordering these challenge coins. So I have these challenge coins, and I buy them by the hundreds. And I find officers, and I say, "Here you go, man. Have a great day." And I give them to them and walk away. I don't want to ask anything. Usually have my card in or whatever. And I'll never forget, I was at a gas station in Lake St. Louis, and the officer was pumping gas. I gave it to him. And I drove away. My number was in there. And he sent me this long text. He said, "I was going to give up today. This saved me. Thank you. That you saw." This is the middle of George Floyd and everything else. This is a white officer, big old dude that ordinarily I might not have approached. So part for me individually is I gotta cross the line.
Yeah.
And so I think all of us, we talk about this is mini micro. It's one person at a time. And so if we can create situations like that, so a little short example. So about 6 years ago, when I've been in St. Louis 11 years, about 6 years ago, we did a thing with Ferguson Forest School District and St. Louis County police officers. It was a Dr. Seuss Month reading book. I bring all these white officers into these classrooms with third grade kids, most of them Black boys. And they're reading, and little kid, I said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" "I want to be him." And the white officer looked at him. And he's like, "Why?" "Because you do good stuff." And it baffled him. And so my thing is, if I can make that officer look at this kid and say, "You are not a threat," and this little kid look at this officer and say, "You are not a threat," the system might be jacked up, but everybody doesn't have to be jacked up. I've seen somebody differently. Once again, that's one at a time. It takes longer.
And the system is made up of what? People.
Right? And people are flawed.
Yeah.
So one at a time, we got to figure part of this out. Doesn't fix the massive, but one at a time.
Well, I mean, that's the path to it, right? And you're different because you're in law enforcement. I have law enforcement, military, my family, military. You know what I mean? So we have different perspectives. So among our peers in the Black community, we're closer to that line to step across. Who I'm speaking for are the people who don't have any of that, where that is an unconscionable thing to walk up to a white officer, right? And it's not just because, you know, we always say everybody's got a story about, you know,
something.
It's not just that. It's not just a lived experience. It's being told your lived experience is invalid.
Right.
So he knows I agree with him, and we share each other's perspectives. But how do we reach I think the way you reach the people who aren't close to that line because they don't have close ties to law enforcement, military, et cetera, is we did an episode about the commoditization of all this suffering for political gain. And that is the biggest megaphone, right? And it's candidates running on the platform of law and order on one side, which many people, present company included, interprets in war on Black people, because it's only certain crimes we're talking about, right? There's no war. There's no war on white collar crime. And then on the other side, you got people running on the defund the police.
And when Eric gets on that kick, I go, "Hold on a minute. Now we're going to talk about that." And I'll have my points and go, "Well, consider this, consider that." He'll say, "Well, consider this. You don't, here, let me educate you on the history."
Yeah.
That's how I go, oh, I didn't understand that
That's how we
perspective.
grow, right?
But
That's
it
right.
even it
Be
happens.
uncomfortable.
It happens in police work too. So you said you gave the challenge coin. This was right after George Floyd. It was a challenge coin to a St. Louis Metro officer, and the environment. So what I want you to do is I want you to, if you go out there, you see any of my officers, I want you to say hi because I want feedback on how that goes. But to this point, the environment that we're policing in is not the environment that those St. Louis Metro officers are policing in.
Right.
So when they don't talk to you, they might be bitter. They might be beat down.
They have lived experience also.
Right.
Yeah.
So when we get to that, it's a matter of perception. I'll tell you a quick story. We had a younger black kid, probably 13, 14. He stole something from one of the big retail stores. It was something insignificant. I think it was a electronic piece or something like that. Anyway, get a description. He's out. Me and another one of my officers. We find him. He's walking down the street. We come up to him. We're like, "Hey, did you take whatever this is?" He had it in his hand. He's like, "Yeah." It's like, "Oh, why'd you do that?" We need to go return that. We need to go take this back. We need to go make it right. And at the end of the end of the first part of the conversation, he goes, "Why are you guys being so nice to me?" I'm like, "Well, why wouldn't we be? What do you mean?" He goes, "That's not what I've heard. You guys are police, blah, 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 blah." So he goes in this whole narrative. I'm like, "Well, that's not
stories he's been told."
I said, "That's
right.
This is false." I said, "Hey, look, we're going to take you back. We've called your mom. You're probably going to be, it sounds, after I talk to your mom, you're going to be in trouble. I'm pretty confident." So number one, I know I got a parent backing me up.
Yeah.
Number two, we're going to go try to make this right. We're going to try to work, because really my goal as a police officer is not to punish everybody, throw everybody in jail. It's to try to get this not to happen again, right? Not to get this never to happen again. Sometimes somebody's got to go to jail for the rest of their life for me to be sure that that's not going to happen again, because the crime's just egregious and they're a threat to society and things like that. That's sad. But it's not always that we're out to throw everybody in jail. When you get to the opinion of, "Hey, I'm just going to throw everybody in jail," that might be because of your implicit biases or biases, to where, because you've been in an environment policing where I'm not even going to say hi to anybody because everybody's a threat. Everybody's against me. It's what we're trying to undo in our profession too. And we're going through that trauma too.
So let me ask the pseudo intellectual question. So I am a big fan of watching older movies with my kids. For them, older movies means movies from the 90s.
From the 90s.
For them, that's an
right,
older,
not for me and Anthony. Okay.
Right.
So we were watching Mars Attacks actually last night. Again, if you haven't seen it,
Not seen it.
terribly great movie. It's is all they say pretty much the whole time. So the aliens are coming to Earth, and Pierce Brosnan plays the scientist, and he says something to the effect of, "Well, they've got to come in peace. These are higher intelligent beings. Look at all their technology. They've got to be socially developed." And something you said on our last episode of tribalism, right? We as humans, we're 2000-ish years old. We are very tribalistic. Do we just need someone to hate sometimes? And I say that it's a very broad statement. So please understand that I'm painting this in a broad way, but you think back of post 9/11, right? People often say you've never seen this country more united than right after September 11th. Didn't matter race, creed, religion. It was, hey, we are all set on a common goal, have a common enemy, whatever the case may be, right? For various reasons. As we talk and as I'm thinking, it almost feels like we as humans just need someone to hate sometimes.
Need someone to fight sometimes, right?
I don't think we need someone to hate. I think we're just given to it.
Well,
Right.
let me change the wording.
Yes.
We need someone to be better than.
Oh, I like that.
I'm better than you.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now I take a step above you. Where does bad start? In the line behind me.
And they often say that's why a lot of non-slave owners fought for the Confederacy, because it was about.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to get into
but
it.
If
But psychologically,
yeah, I'm better than.
Yeah.
And so then it becomes a competition, a mindset, and you can be raised in this. It's hard to unraise a child, whatever that condition is, whatever that thought process is. And so if I think I'm better than them, then we are not then equal. If we're not then equal, then you deserve less. These dominoes start to fall.
Yeah.
And then I don't see you equally. If I don't see you equally, I don't see your pain equally. I don't see your redemption equally.
Right.
I don't see you're not going to make it.
Yeah.
Of course I'll make it, but you won't. Whatever your other is, whatever that thing is. And so part of it's a human condition that we have. How we look at ourselves. Yeah.
Say, Chief, even, and I don't want to speak for any of your officers, but I'm sure some officers have experienced of whether it's a certain group, certain demographic, as far as financial difference, whatever the deciding factor is. Do you ever see that reflection within law enforcement of, well, hey, we're the good guys, right? No matter what, we uphold the law. We're inherently the good guys. They're the others, right? And whoever that is, for whatever reason.
I think that I see we're the good guys because we have the mission. We're trying to set out. We're not the perfect guys, though. We're not. But when we draw that line, the line is not drawn to. It's drawn between order and chaos, right? The whole blue line, right? We talked about what's fake and what's real, the fallacies. The thin blue line does not mean this is a line that we draw between the people on the opposite side, whether that be minority communities or whatnot, and the police. That is the line of trying to protect from via order and chaos. That's what it really means. And when we talk about, hey, we're the good guys, or to me, when somebody says that, it means I'm trying to stand up and do what's right.
Yeah.
And you're the good guys too. We're all on the same side, people doing right, people doing wrong. The people doing wrong, though, there is grace, mercy, and redemption for them. We need to try to help them, but we need to try to help them in the right manner too. And look, I'm confident. I know, because we've heard back from people's lives have been saved by sending them to jail. People have gone to jail and they have had their lives saved. But instead of, a lot of times we go out and we look for the differences between the groups. If it's police and community, everybody's focusing on the differences. Because if I take somebody who's impoverished in the Black community, probably didn't grow up like me, right? We had the discussion of, even, hey, yeah, mom had a talk with me. If I get pulled over, I do that. My mom never had a talk with me. I never went through that. I didn't have that experience. And a lot of times when I break down all these differences, what I've found is there's one common theme that I've found a thread with, and it doesn't matter what community I'm in. I go to, the Black community and go, hey, here's me, 57-year-old white male cop, all that. When I get to faith, that thread is the thread that if I go, you know what, Christian, I believe in Christ. This is how I live my life. This is actually how I ground my identity. I can tell you more people that have more differences than me align with, hey, I got that in common. You need to find that common thread,
Yeah.
and then the conversation starts.
Well, and you really said something. I'm gonna let you guys jump in on this, but I want to reiterate something you said that I don't think is heard enough. That the blue line isn't about us and them. Is the line between order and chaos. And I think there's a misconception out there, right, based off of Ferguson stuff. I mean, just a litany of things that it is an us and them. And so I just maybe want to bring that back up to reiterate to anyone listening. You heard it from the chief himself. It's not about us and them as far as Black and white or cop and civilian. It is that line between order and chaos. And I think that's important because that message is often lost.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think we often want the same thing.
Yeah,
right.
It takes time to sit down and recognize, we do have these commonalities. We have these issues. Can we get these together first? Because that way we may still disagree, but you don't have to be my enemy. I don't have to think the worst of you and people like you because of this. Let's find ways, that commonality you talked about. If we can start there, let's meet there. Now let's talk. We're not going to solve the problem overnight. Let's talk a little bit. And stop. Talk a little bit more and stop. Because these are pain points. At some point in time, you're like, that's too painful. Okay, cool. We'll stop right there.
Deeply rooted history.
It's
like
deep.
So many.
It's
years of
right.
of all that hurt
And it goes
on both sides.
It goes both ways.
Yeah.
So if you tell a child, I'm a girl dad, I had daughters. I gave them the talk too, driving. We were in Dallas. But what I realized over time is when I say stuff like that, I've been blessed not to live in certain neighborhoods. I've had better policing outcomes, put it that way, okay? It didn't make them any less afraid. I said, you know, when you get stopped, do this is what you do. Well, that's a fear I've created. And that was never their reality.
Yeah.
It goes both ways in this. And I'm like, okay, did I perpetuate something? A narrative that maybe I should have had a better nuance to? Yes, they were prepared. But I don't know if I'm just sitting here thinking about it. I don't know if I created more fear in this.
Well,
did I create a line? I don't know.
See, education.
Now you're hitting the thing, right? Like, because we can all, let's be real, we can all sit here and say we need to talk. We need to. This stuff is super complicated.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm just calling that out. I know nobody here believes that. I'm just calling that out because it could sound like, oh, we just need to sit down and talk.
No.
But there's a lot to that. And the idea that, and I got to talk too, it wasn't my reality.
Yeah.
I grew up in a resourced household with educated parents who modeled discipline, and we grew up in a safe town and all this stuff. So I that wasn't my reality, but it was the reality of people in my family.
Yeah.
Right.
I have relatives who have been jammed up unfairly. Right. I've had relatives who in a car with a white person not driving. The other person was driving.
Right.
Found a joint in the ashtray.
Right.
Call the white person's parents to pick them up. Took my people to jail.
Right.
What?
Yeah.
For what?
Yeah.
What? What's the charge? You know what I mean? So,
and I've seen. I told you about. And I know police officers that were arrested, and it was overturned.
Yeah.
And it was like. And it was not a minority. It wasn't what race was not an issue in the case. But I mean, like when you look at the court case and all that, and it was like some politics involved in that. And when you say, hey, the court system or the system or whatever, it depends on who's applying it. Yeah, it was unjust. It was wrong, and we do have that, and we need to root that out and get rid of it because it's wrong. And I don't know, this is my experience, right? And it's also my bias. When the law enforcement that I talk to, that's why when you say, well, how is law enforcement set up as far as, being biased, being right and wrong, all that. My experience with law enforcement is the overwhelming majority of police officers are good, ethical people that want to do what's right. They're not perfect, but they want to do what's right. And then we have this low percentage that just don't need to be in our profession. They don't have the ethics. They don't have the values. And that's where you get, and it's not just in law enforcement, through the criminal justice system, through all phases of society. But, we'll see that sometimes in the courts, and they cause a lot of damage because as you get that position of authority, it's a lot of power. And if it's misused, then it misrepresents us, like we've had on our other podcasts, and it destroys all the good work that we've done trying to build what we're building here.
Because what doesn't make the news is your officer taking it like, or you, I think it was you in that story, we got to take this back.
Right.
We're going to make this right. I'm going to take you home to your parents. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That doesn't make the news.
No. Right. No.
But you see murders on the news.
Yeah.
So it's a disproportionate part of the public consciousness. Right. The bad actors take up a disproportionate part of all of our consciousness, right? Yeah. Because as an officer, you don't see the people who ain't doing that. Well, unless you're out there talking to people.
Yeah. Right. And one thing you said was what Chief said, you would have heard 10 years ago, 15 years ago. We need to root them out. When I was coming up, there was a blue line of secrecy.
Yeah.
And it was firm. Now they want these officers out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And granted, they're bad doctors, lawyers, dentists, whatever.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's not public like that.
Yeah.
And it's not often final. Okay. They want bad officers out. Nobody hires with the intent of hiring a bad officer. You spend a lot of time, money, training, and effort to hire good human beings to do a job. But like any job that you work with coworkers, you're like, why did you hire him?
Yeah.
Why did you hire her? Did you not know? Did you not check?
Right.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it's too late. I think the times of, and there's some departments across our country that aren't policing themselves well.
Yep.
And they're getting shown on a regular basis. I
Right.
think many departments are trying to do better at this. Okay.
Right.
Once again, there's a long history of not. So trying to do better, it doesn't lead the press.
Right.
When officers do well, you don't see that. We got to celebrate some of that.
Yes. Yeah. 100% agree.
And recognize once again. So I was thinking this morning, black officer in Atlanta that was shot and killed last week. Outside the CDC, the guys shooting up the CDC. Well, as people are running away, this officer had been there less than a year, husband, father to got a child on the way. And he's running into the drama and gets shot and killed. And so as much as we don't like whatever it is, we're not running in. It takes a certain mindset to say, I'm going to run in. And it wasn't running in because he was black there. What he didn't know.
Yeah.
Chaos.
Going to do his job.
I'm order. I step into chaos.
Yes.
And so there are more of them than anything else. And somehow we've got to find a way to say, that's the beacon of light we want to look at.
Right.
Not this. We make the negative the beacon of light and we hold it up sometimes so brightly on both sides. Here's the criminal, here's the cop. No, let's stop doing that, because if that's only the narrative we have, we're gonna fight.
Yeah.
Well,
And I think
that's
last point.
Yeah.
So I just want to say, I think over the last 10 years, I think all of this is starting to come to the surface.
Because it's video.
No, I mean,
But part of it is because you get to see people, and you have to deal with the George Floyd because you saw it. There was,
right.
And this is an era where there were so many things online, and you're like, wow, look at that. You couldn't ignore it anymore. You had to talk about it.
Right. And I think that's the impetus for it. And
Yeah.
and we went from, at that time, and I think we talked about on previous episodes, like the people who support law enforcement aren't doing you any favors when you're like, George Floyd died of fentanyl overdose.
Yeah.
Well,
guys,
we
talked about
But I
that.
think as an
Yeah,
impetus, jumping as that, with that as a jumping off point, plus all the cases that came before it.
Right.
I think over the last 10 years, it is becoming manifest the efforts of law enforcement to, now, I mean, we're all closer to it than I think the average person, but I think it's starting to show up. Like, this is changing, right? We had the Sangamon County guy who had been in 4 different municipalities and had huge problems and got hired, and the sheriff shot that woman in her kitchen.
That's a problem.
Right. Like that kind of stuff, that is becoming fewer and farther between, and it ain't because the media is not looking for it.
Yeah.
Right. So I think, and I know I'm kind of being the voice of people who aren't as close as we are to this, and I can come off negative, but I do think that is moving. And when I talk about earlier in the conversation about I'm using air quotes, law enforcement needs to, for lack of a better word, account. That's not the right word,
No.
but recognize that this history exists and that law enforcement of the past has been participating in it. That doesn't mean the individual officers and chiefs and everybody else. It's okay if somebody does something wrong. You're not 100% perfect, like you said.
Yeah.
And making a show, not a show, but making it transparent that we see this event, this is wrong.
Yeah.
We're gonna, and that this
We're
person
taking-
is
we're
going to
taking
face the
action.
appropriate consequences.
Yeah, we're
That's
taking
all
action.
anybody ever wants.
well,
Right?
and
That's all that's fair to ask for.
Right.
we are running out of time here, but in the spirit of this program, we have the hard conversation.
Sure.
Yeah.
These aren't necessarily conversations you're having at Thanksgiving with your family without
Right.
them exploding into various opinions. But I do want to turn this and end on a more positive note for not only ourselves, but for our listeners. So I think, and you hit it on the head, all of you guys have several times, the good things are never highlighted, right? It's easier and it's almost expected to hone in on the negative. So as we close out, I'd really like to take the time to recognize the positives in each community, right? So the positive things that police officers are doing, the positive things from community engagement, from leaders, whether it be the Latino community, the Asian community, the Black community, what are those leaders doing to help leverage and work with those around us? What are the average Joes like you and me doing, right? And whether that's just a simple hello or a providing them the officer the benefit of the doubt, whatever that may be. Those are the things we don't hear. So
Right.
I think that's where I would like to leave this today,
Yeah.
and then on a positive note. So
Yeah.
we have something to carry forward.
Absolutely.
That's good.
I agree.
I'll open it up to the room. Mike Wilkerson, you want to chime in?
There's something that's sprinkled throughout all the episodes.
Mhm.
Concept of generate an atmosphere. Someone else can't do that enough.
Yeah.
It's so easy
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
to take a moment and realize it's more than just your ego, your moment you are currently living. And if there is something else that you can do to also foster the environment, that guy that gave you I don't know, but I want to foster that guy's environment.
Yeah.
Right.
I want that again. It's about creating the atmosphere that you want to live in. Simply
Yeah.
doing things as small as
Yep.
going to have a conversation. You've never even had a conversation. There's a something neat about the studio. I never know. We just had a reasonably large redevelopment walkway right outside. The sample is it was kind of a walking minefield. You know, there were no sidewalks.
Yeah.
Traffic was going every way you could possibly. So what they did was they tore it up, put in sidewalks, actually crosswalks with what? Cross the street and not die by getting hit by a car. What? All of those things are generating an atmosphere that
Mhm.
allows people to live a better life. Is a walkway inside of us like where we are that is creating an environment for everybody to stay no.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to know
Shout out to Circle K if you want to sponsor us.
Shout out to the city for improving the sidewalks
Yeah.
there.
that
I still believe in humanity.
Okay.
As much negative as we've had in our global history, going to Rwanda a few years ago showed me that humanity can grow, can forgive, can redeem, and has a future. And so, what is my role? I got to be better. There's some days I'm like, no, scorched earth, and I'm good with that. I know how to do it well.
Right.
It's being human, baby.
Oh, I know this. I know it well. I can throw rocks. But okay, what if I don't? What if I have to? Okay, I got to heal the land. What's my responsibility in healing the land? I got to think better of you, even if you are my enemy. And here's the biggest piece I tell people all the time: it ain't personal. If you're in my ecosystem as a friend and you do something, that's personal. If you do something against me because of the image of me, that ain't personal.
Yeah.
That's your problem.
Right.
I just happened to walk into your ecosystem where you felt like you could do whatever. And so let me not take it personal. Then
Right.
I don't, at that point, I don't react. Reactions are emotional. I respond. Responding is strategic. I'm going to try to think through this thing as much as I can. And I got to take myself out of the situation because I got a sharp mouth. And then that perpetuates
So do I
stuff.
sometimes.
You know,
So do I sometimes.
you know,
I get it.
little thing, you know, when I was younger, I got pulled over by a police officer in Raleigh, North Carolina. He's like, you know why I stopped you? My response was, because you couldn't pass algebra. And see,
damn.
And he's
love that. You ride the car pretty quick, huh?
And I was like, you know, mind mouth filter, some things you don't need to say.
Ooh-wee.
That was one of them.
That was a hot one, man.
And here's the bad part.
Right off the rip.
I've been waiting for that for a long time. But I think better of society than maybe people say you should. No. You know, I watch people who do outstanding things we don't talk about.
Yeah.
That cross barriers that we don't think about. Everybody can't be the enemy.
Right.
Everybody cannot be the enemy. And if I know that, then they could be my friend. At the lowest common denominator, they're just not my enemy. We ain't got to agree on nothing, but you're not my enemy, you know? And so if I focus on it every day, not every day's not good, you know, I'll get in heated conversations, but you know what? I want the best out of it. And so that, for me, that's a personal piece that I think I have to take.
Chief, I'm going to kick it to you. We'll let the birthday boy go last.
You know, Anthony, we want to get you back on this show. I think the
Absolutely.
perspective has been outstanding, and I need you to help me encourage more law enforcement to get on this show, because it's, you know, it is risky going out. I tried to explain to these guys, why doesn't more law enforcement step up? Well, you're under the microscope all the time, and with social media out there, you're going to get lit up all the time, and it's a fear, right? It's fear.
Yeah.
But if we break the ice, you know, and we get 2 cops on, I still consider you a cop, right?
Yeah.
And police chaplain and minister, you know, if we have leaders like this that come onto the show, and it gets infectious. And I can tell you, behind the scenes, police officers want to have these conversations. They do want to have the conversation. They don't want to have it publicly, but they do want to talk about it. And they want to bridge the gap. Nobody wants, we're better off working together. You guys know that. Police officers know that. And you can't have community policing. I'll say it again. You can't have community policing without the community and the police.
Right.
You got to have both.
Yep.
So, and it's something that works. But yeah, just in closing, like I said, I hope everybody enjoyed the show. It was I thought it was great content for me. Learning experience as always. We'll just need to keep moving it forward.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
Birthday boy.
Birthday boy. Or I said man.
Happy birthday.
Man.
Dude, hey, go get the cake, Wilkerson.
The cake, right?
It's only,
How's he gonna jump out of it if he's not getting the
it's
cake?
only a cupcake, dude. That's all you get.
He's got it. It's melting down in the side of his chair there. Light the candle.
I'll close this podcast the same way I've closed a lot of our podcasts, which is the idea of humanizing other people. We're singing the same song, right?
Yeah.
And my thing is, if you can see that officer as a man or a woman doing their job, trying to get home to their family, and, you know, doing the best they can, that changes everything. If you can view that suspect as a member of the community that you are serving, think of yourself as acting in service of that person,
right?
Even if you have to arrest that person, that changes the perspective, right? And I thought your perspective was great. I'm a lot more cynical than you, but I aspire.
You are not.
I love that he enjoyed himself, so he just tickled himself right there. I'm a lot more cynical about the world, but I do think that the world, another positive note, is I think the world is moving back toward community fellowship. I think I was talking to my wife the other day, and I was like, if you were going to design something to destroy human connection, social media is the perfect tool.
Mm-hmm.
Not only was it marketed, think about how back in the day Facebook was marketed. Oh, stay connected to your friends and your family. So you think you're doing connection, but you're not.
Yeah.
Right.
We're learning, right?
Yeah.
And then we give these kids cell phones at 8, and the time when they should be learning to form human connections, they're in their screens.
Yep.
Thinking they are, you know what I mean? Like, and
Yeah.
I think the recognition of that is coming back. I think social media is hitting its peak and is going to come back to earth. And I think that people are recognizing how that lack of connection has damaged us as a society, and how disinvestment in human beings has damaged us as a society. And to your resources point and everything else we've talked about, I think I'm optimistic for a shift back in that direction, which is going to benefit the community. It's going to benefit children, it's going to benefit law enforcement, and it's going to make, in tandem with law enforcement over the last decade, making really concerted efforts to get bad actors out of their ranks. I think all of that is going to pay off for us in the near future.
I agree.
That's my optimistic take. I know, shocking. Everybody
hit the like button though.
Yeah, everybody just fell out listening to this.
Like and subscribe. There we go.
No, but I think that's what
I think that we've had a positive influence over you, so you're becoming less bitter. I'm just going to say that. So.
Well, and
I'll give you credit.
Well, I'll end it by saying, I think being a part of the conversation, right? That's, it's standard for, YouTubers and everything like, subscribe, comment, feedback, but this show truly is based off of engagement, feedback, being part of the conversation, taking some of these points that have been brought up and challenging yourself, your friends, your family, but in a constructive manner, in a way that helps us grow. And that is one thing I can say that before, during, and after, I always walk away from these conversations a better man, for the perspectives that are shared, for the fellowships that are shared, for the faith that's shared. So I want to ask our audience to go to Black and Blue Voices, check us out. Please, give us some feedback, become part of the conversation, start the conversation within your own communities. But I really just want to thank this group in the room, truly, from the bottom of my soul. We will get through this together. And that's what we have to keep in mind.
Amen.
One team, one fight.
We have to.